Thank you for inviting me to kickstart this very optimistic, motivating festival. I thought I'd start by saying I read an article recently by a very, very established woman journalist who during a career of some 20 years has interviewed some of the world's most powerful women in media, in the arts, in politics, and during her whole career she said that she had only met one woman who ever openly declared herself to be ambitious. Right? And I thought, well, this is very interesting. And I said, well, I thought as an opener, I might ask all the women here, how many people consider themselves ambitious? I thought maybe raise your hand, all of you who consider yourselves to be hungrily, ruthlessly, go-gettingly ambitious. Good, you see. Well, I think that's quite unusual, because I think in many, many forums that wouldn't be the case. I think that probably is a credit to the festival and making people feel at ease, that you feel happy to admit to your own ambition. Because I think a lot of the time when women are asked this question, they try and put it down, or their success down, to good luck or to some kind of other unassuming attribute pushed to an extreme, like tactfulness, hard work, good listening, selflessness, humility. But let's see, maybe that question was quite hard to answer. So if I said, how many of you want to achieve distinction in the work that you do? Oh yeah, there's more hands, you see, there's more hands in answer to that question. Okay, so why is that an easier question to answer? I don't know, it's because ambition is still a really ugly word, isn't it? It's a kind of, it just never sounds sort of good, really, and I don't know why that is. It's because it somehow sounds self-centered a bit, doesn't it? Or competitive, or grasping, or unfeminine. It has these kind of little claws that sort of, even when you say it, sort of niggle at you inside and sully that nice image in your own sort of conception of who you are, and suggest that you might at heart be some narcissistic, go-getting monster who you'd much rather were left buried at the bottom of the wardrobe. No, I really know these feelings, I really do, and I know that it feels sort of shameful to consider yourself ambitious, but I think maybe the shame comes from answering no to the question when maybe sometimes you mean yes, or maybe the shame comes from just giving a damn what anybody thinks. So then I thought about this word ambition, and I thought, okay, what about letting it out of its box and putting a definition to it? So how about this one? Ambition is an earnest desire for some type of achievement or distinction and the willingness to strive for its attainment. I mean, that sounds pretty unthreatening, doesn't it? But it sounds like, actually, so what was that book? That 1922 book by Emily Post on etiquette. You know, how to be a good 1980s, how there's something straight out of that. And that wasn't me neutering it. That was something I got straight off the internet, straight out of a dictionary. See, then I said neutering, you see. See, that just exposed me, didn't it? It means that what I'm actually saying is that ambition is just a horrid, heavy-handed, evil, masculine, nasty trait, and that, you know, nice, sensitive, modest, kindly, uncompetitive women have absolutely nothing to do with it. And it's funny, because when I've been looking at the statistics of women in the film industry, I found some really astonishing little scraps of information. And you know, still, actually, they are just scraps, funnily enough. You know, it's not rich pickings yet, statistics on women in the film industry. And I read that two actresses of the silent era, Lillian Gish and Mary Pickford, both tried their hand at directing. And Mary Pickford, in fact, in most of her films, did actually most of the directing, or at least quite a lot of the directing. But she never credited herself on the credits for fear that to say she was a director would interfere with her star status. And that the star might lose its luster if it was seen to do anything as workmanlike as direct. And why is that? Is it because to take the helm or take control of something is essentially unfeminine, or is it because in the word director there's some sort of slightly unattractive whiff of blinkered control, kind of encoded in the very word director? And recently I found myself talking about working with Lona Scherfig on an education. And I found myself saying how openly she assessed everybody's ideas, and I think her genius was really in listening to everybody and incorporating all those ideas and kind of realising them in the sort of French sense of the word, in the sense of I'll try my French accent. Réalisateur, does that sound right? I always sound like a bit of a wanker. And you know, a realizer grasps things, and then they turn that realization. You know, it's realizing in both sets of the words, understanding and then making real. You knew that already, I don't know. You know, they turn that realization into a work of art, which is what all good directors do. So theirs is the sort of presiding intelligence that makes sense of everybody else's. And then in France, a film director is a réalisateur. And interestingly, I think there are more female directors in France. So why is that? Is that because it's a nicer word? I mean, it's easier to sort of align yourself to being a realizer than it is to being a director. Or maybe, you know, maybe there are more women producers, because essentially, I suppose, you know, being productive is kind of essentially feminine, in a basic way. So I'm really here to get you all to be a lot less feminine. No, I'm not. I mean, that's, I'm not doing that. In fact, because the irony here is that a good director needs to be really, really feminine. I mean, if you look at all those male directors, all those fellas out there, you know, they've got their long hair and their kind of natty dress sense and their sensitive sides. I mean, you know, they're all so busy cleverly accessing their feminine sides that we don't realise that they're taking up all the space and having their cake and eating it, like dancing on both sides of the coin, swinging both ways, and then pushing out those people into the wings who have the really feminine sides. I mean, my sides are so feminine that maybe even I could be a good director. But what I'm saying is that you know, male directors, and I always like to say I have a male director, you know, in order to distinguish him from just a director, that male directors aren't really ever ashamed to take advantage of their, well, of traditionally female qualities to achieve their goals. So as a director, the good ones need to be sensitive, nurturing, insightful, all sort of traditionally female attributes, as well as being inspiring leaders. And directorship really requires that fine balance of sensitiveness, gentleness and strength. But it also requires, in order to get up to bat, in order to even be a director or get the chance, it requires the willingness to fight for the job, to go out there and prove yourself to be the best, and invite yourself to be respected, perhaps before being liked. I think there are more women who care about being liked. A good director, a really good one, with all those sensitive feminine bits and all the strong leadership bits, is probably also, in fact, no, I'd almost say he or she, is definitely also the A word. Like an arsehole. No, I mean, probably, possibly, maybe he is an arsehole. No, but I mean, he's ambitious. Did I get away with that? You know, a good director is probably also ambitious. And I've suddenly realised, just thinking about this and thinking about what to talk to you about, and thinking about the question of women in the film industry, that as a sex, generally, we need to become really comfortable with this idea of ambition. And ambition shouldn't desexualise us or make us unlikable. The only thing it should do is level the playing field. Because really, the struggle for success is still not the traditional battleground for women. Because maybe in the most crude sense, career success has never got a woman a mate, whereas it has almost always got a man a mate. Historically, you know, women haven't been brought up to compete in the arena of career success, wealth and power, but they've competed amongst one another on a much more surface level, and, you know, still do to a certain extent. I mean, you know, sometimes I do really, it depresses me that sometimes I think we're so busy competing with one another that we leave all the fellas with a completely open field in which they do what they damn well want, while we sort of kindly take ourselves out of running. Oh yes, I was going to tell you, I auditioned for a job recently and I didn't get it. None of you sounded very surprised. Anyway, but the word came back that what they were looking for was a flirty piece of ass, right? Now, I've never really sort of styled myself particularly as a flirty piece of ass, and I've never really wanted to be one, but suddenly on being told that I wasn't one, I felt really offended. And I was thrust right back onto that totally primeval battlefield of the mating game. The point was, I was the loser at the mating game. And the fact that sex appeal wasn't even a level at which I wanted to compete was sort of totally lost on me for a brief moment. Because I really think that the competitions that count are the ones that are played on a level playing field where sex has nothing to do with it. You know, both in terms of sex appeal and in terms of gender. And I think that if we really want to change the game, we have to set aside our notions that ambition and competitiveness are somehow or in any way unseemly, and halt any indignation that might just sort of instinctively rise up when we're confronted with it. And I think that we can convert sexism into very healthy competition. Okay, so the other day I'm driving my car down, I stop at these lights. I have quite a nice car. This guy motions to me to roll down the window. And he says to me, he says, "Not too fast for you, is it?" Okay, yeah, so you all wins, right? Okay, so I have two choices. Choice A is to see this as sexist. Choice B is to see it as competitive, right? So if I see it as sexist and I just say, "Oh, fuck off," right, he's won. But if I, see it as competitive, and I say, "Well, my other car is a Learjet," I mean, I sound like a wanker, but at least I'm sort of, taking up the challenge. I have actually vowed the next time I see a man who's driving a car like mine, to say exactly the same line and just see what happens if I just say, "Not too fast for you, is it?" And I think that if we're going to take on the challenge of making the film business a 50-50 industry, then sexism just has to go out of our vocabulary. We can compete healthily, we can show our feminine sides, while at the same time being gloriously, attractively, sexily ambitious.
Yeah.
Yes? I think it kind of works, no? Thank you.